The international break is upon us. It's started already. England have beaten Switzerland. It means that there's no Premier League football at the moment, and myself and Baz twiddling our thumbs a little bit, scratching our heads as well, wondering what we can talk to you about now that you've heard our Arsenal review. So we thought, let's go on a Premier League prediction adventure. This is Talk of the Trinity.
Until you break down.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am still, contrary to popular opinion, Baz Barrett. With me is Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. And we are always here, regardless of personality, on our Twitter page, at Talk Trinity, on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity. Our audio providers are gearing out each episode. They're there. The servers are straining with all our insight, knowledge. I mean, you know, the wonders of modern technology, but you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Deezer. We're also on FanHub. It is FanHub. I think hopefully I'm not giving out free publicity for a company we're not on, but we are there. We're here. We're everywhere. And where we are now at time of recording is international week. It's more fortnight really, between our games. And of course, whilst international football is on, what better thing to talk about than the Premier League, you know, the league that never sleeps. And we've dipped our toe into the water of the other teams in the Premier League on previous episodes of the podcast. But now we've tested the water and it's warm and the sun is out, we're going to jump straight into those deep waters of Premier League football. And we are going to go literally through the entire league. We're going to give our predictions for the rest of the season. We're going to be predicting who we think's going down, who we think's winning the league, and everything in between, quite literally. We'll even dip into the shallower waters. I say shallow, it's actually deeper, the Championship. I mean, getting out of that league, I mean, you know, if you get a current the wrong way, you're ended up in League One and then probably even further down the pyramid for some poor souls. Bolton. So we're looking to delve straight in, you know, no messing around anymore. The bottom five of the Premier League. And firstly, unless I am inadvertently revealing a huge spoiler alert, it's a nice thing that we started doing this podcast when we did and not a couple of years ago, because this is the bit of the show in our first season back in the Premier League where we'll be talking about Villa. Hopefully we're not going to be, so you're going to have to listen to us talk about some other teams. So we're going to go through firstly who we think is going to be in the bottom five, and then we're going to delve a bit deeper into some of the key games, and then we're going to pin our colours to the mast and say who we think is going down. So Will, your teams who you think are going to be in the bottom five, in no particular order at this stage, who you think is going to be either below that waterline at the end of the season or glancing nervously over their shoulder until the end?
I would just like to point out before I give you my five that had we started this 2 years ago when Villa came back up to the Premier League, I'd still be predicting them to win it regardless. But bottom five in alphabetical order, not to give the game away, but you know, my alphabet sometimes isn't the greatest because I like alphabets and I tend to eat them. And sometimes I try to eat letters that are on paper as well because I'm a fatty. We've got Burnley, Everton, Leeds, Norwich and Watford. Those are my bottom five. And it's very apt that they're five because you've got four fingers and a thumb, as Jake found out from his eye test the other day. And they make a perfect hand. They make a waving hand. Three of them we're going to be saying bye-bye to. Ta-ta. See you later.
We are indeed. And
those are my five.
Yep. In terms of my five, I've got four the same as you. My only glancing over at my sideline, the only difference I have is I've got Newcastle instead of Watford. So the four that are the same as you: Norwich, Leeds, Everton, Burnley. So delving a little deeper into the potential makeup at the bottom, it's safe to say the season has not gone very well for most of those, unsurprisingly, because we're talking about them being near the bottom. It's interesting in terms of sometimes you will say that managerial upheaval can lead to struggle and uncertainty. Most, even taking Watford and Newcastle from ours, every single team in there has changed manager apart from one, Burnley. And we both got Burnley to be going down there. So it's a real tight line. I mean, Everton, obviously, down there, changed the manager. There was a bright hope with Benitez at the start of the season. Didn't pan out, I think it's safe to say. Go and have a listen to our podcast that we did ahead of the Villa Everton away game in January with Peter, the Talking Toffees, where he talks us through the Benitez era and what went wrong. But we've got that shenanigans going on at Everton. You have, in terms of Leeds, we talked about it when our recent podcasts, Bielsa going, new manager Marsh, Standash coming in. They've got some key games against each other. So some of these teams at the bottom. Are there any that have particularly caught your eye, which are going to decide the fates of these teams and who's going to be staying up?
I think every single one for Everton is a big game based upon their season. You know, you spot on with what you said about Pete's analysis. He was very downhearted and dejected when he spoke to you, not just because I wasn't there, but because of the way that Everton's season was going. But, you know, when we spoke to him at the start of the year, before the 3-0 win, and you could potentially say that ever since then, things have been going wrong for Everton. Yep. Would it be a far stretch? Not really. They haven't done very well since then.
Nope. Although a lot of people do say that things start to go wrong after they've talked to us.
Well, yeah, to be fair, yeah. But, you know, that big 3-0 win for us, which was a surprise for us at the time, especially with how well Everton were doing their first 8 games, or however many it was before they played us. They were absolutely fantastic. We were lauding the signing of Damari Gray. But I digress. I think Everton have got some big games there. They've got Watford at Vicarage Road, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
That I think is going to be an absolutely massive game. And I actually believe it's one of those games where it's going to be a very close scoreline. Yep. Watford, obviously, I've mentioned are in those bottom 5. I think Watford are going to edge that game. And I think it's going to be one of those 94th minute Dennis winners, just as Everton have equalised, that sees the point stay with the home team. Trying to remember off the top of my head, Norwich have got most of those teams that are down the bottom as well, but I really don't see Norwich winning again this season. I think there'll be a couple of games where they get absolutely spanked, and I think there'll be 1 or 2 games where it's close. But, you know, for Norwich, you sort of feel that they're expecting it really to go down. There was a bit of hope after Dino moved there, and they did quite well for his first few games. But they're a team that are set up to bounce between leagues, and they've said that before. You know, they drop down, they sell their better players, or they sell at least one of their better players. They add to the squad that they've got with some young guns, and then they come back up, and it starts all over again. And it would be nice one year for Norwich to finish 4th, you know, just to actually stay up and see how the owners reacted to that when they realised they've actually got a little bit more money.
Liquidation.
Well, yeah. You know, but this year, let's be honest, without Emi Buendia and with Todd Cantwell just not doing anything that was expected of him, considering we were linked for 40 million not too long ago.
Yeah, safe to say we've done well to keep the money in our pocket, though. I mean, I think last I saw he was on loan at Bournemouth, I believe.
Yeah, not playing too much there either. I think it's very apt that you point out that 4 of those teams have changed their manager, and you wonder, have they done it too late? Well, Watford, it was around about that time that they were going to change their manager, so there was nothing new there.
I mean, Watford, they've changed the manager twice during the course of the season.
Yeah,
I mean the Ranieri era was short-lived, shall we say.
Ranieri was a very strange appointment, really. I know he did very well previously at Leicester when he won the league, but they dropped off massively. They sacked him and brought in Shakespeare, to keep them up at that time. Yep. You sort of feel that a battle-hardened, approach for them would have been better. Roy Hodgson coming in that bit sooner probably would have worked more in their favour. He'd have done what he did against us over the course of the season, and they probably would have got a few more wins, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, for Watford, just jumping in there. I mean, they're not in my bottom 5, so I think Watford are going to stay up. You may have deduced, because they're not in my bottom 5, and I do think that is. We mentioned the fixtures. You mentioned they got Everton at home. They've also got Burnley at home, Brentford at home, Leeds at home. I think they're going to get some points out of those games, and I think that is going to be enough to keep them over the line. I mean, we'll see if you think it's enough for you when we talk about the bottom 3, but I think in terms of, it was interesting when, again, go and listen to our preview of when we played Watford. I mean, don't listen to the review. That was terrible. You get that out of your minds. But the preview, we were talking with our counterparts on Watford side of the fence, even though he was from Birmingham, so it was a local conversation in that sense. But I asked the question there: even if Hodgson keeps them up, would you keep him next season? And he said no. So I do think there is an element of, he gets them over the line, that is a job done, off into the sunset, and I think they will. We'll wait and see whether you do when we go into our bottom 3 predictions. But I think it's safe to say, based on what you've said there, you think Norwich are down. I'm going to throw a teaser in there, a spoiler. I think they're down as well. They're coming bottom. Let's be honest. It's, as you said, their team set up to bounce between the divisions, take the 90, 100 million, however, probably more in terms of TV money, rebuild in the Championship, go over in the Premier League. I mean, from a fan perspective, as you said, just that one season of staying up. I mean, they did it under Paul Lambert, funnily enough. That was to talk about not doing his podcast a couple of years ago. If we'd have been doing it 10 years ago, kind of, God knows what would have been. I think it would have been taken off the air. But keep those petitions going, folks.
Send them back down.
Yep.
Send them back down for crimes against the Villa. Because it was because of that season, as you say, that we got him. And, oh my days, Lambert. But, you point out some games there, and I completely forgot about some of those Watford ones. Watford Burnley, I think, is going to be the most boring game of football.
Oh, yeah.
That there is going. And, I expect
under 2.5 goals is the one to go to the bookies with on that one.
Yeah. I think for Norwich, that Norwich is so... For they're not a free hit, because Man City's a free hit, aren't they? They're the opposite of a free hit. They're the guaranteed 3 pointers, you'd think. I do think they'll fare well in 1 or 2 of their games, but I also think that they're going to get a hammering. Last game of the season, they've got Spurs at home. I don't think it's going to be a final Premier League game to remember. I think Spurs are going to come along and put 6 past them, and Kane and Son are going to dance off into the sunset. Quite happy as Larry or happy as Harry. But I do see Norwich going to Old Trafford and only losing 2-0, against Man U. They did very well against Man U at home this year. It was 1-0, dodgy penalties all around. Norwich. You can't say much more, can you?
Well, the only thing I'd say for Norwich fans listening, just to really put the icing on this terrible cake we've made. Norwich come to Villa Park, as things stand, on the 30th of April with the 4th last game. I think that could be the game if Villa win, which, spoiler alert, I think we will. Send Norwich down. Wouldn't that be a turn up in terms of the Dean Smith journey? Comes to Villa to get relegated. But, you know, that would be something. But speaking of something, both got Norwich bottom. That leaves 19th, 18th. Who have you got 19th and 18th?
Okay, so 19th, I have got a team who I believe will sack their manager before the end of the season. And I think that after sacking their manager, they'll have a slight upturn in fortune. They might win a game and draw a couple. But they'll ultimately lose last game of the season, and they'll finish 4 points off the pace in 19th place. I hate to say it because I like the podcaster. I've got Everton to finish 19th.
Ooh, okay.
And then 2 points ahead of them and only 2 points off the drop. So a surprise for you here, because you don't even have them in your bottom five. That's where I think Watford finish. I think they'll get a couple of good results, and I think they'll get good results against the teams that are around them. But you know, they've got the likes of Liverpool. I'm sure they've got Man City at some point as well. And they're obviously, most teams going to get hammered by them. But I just don't think Watford are going to do enough. I think Leeds go to Vicarage Road and Leeds get a victory over there when you look at the quality of player that Leeds have got compared to Watford. Yes, Hodgson's going to try and set them up to be hard to break down, but he just doesn't seem to be able to penetrate and get those wins unless they're against the Villa. And ultimately, that's going to be their downfall. So for me, Norwich, Everton, Watford, and then I'll give you my other two, obviously, both on 33 points, both escaping by 2 points. Leeds in 17th and Burnley 16th. I will add, Burnley lose both of their games to the Villa.
Yep. I've got Villa to win a home game and draw the away. But in terms of my points breakdown, I've got 19th, 18th, 17th, 32, 33, 34 in terms of points. Just to explain, we went on a prediction website, we put all the results in, and then we got a table. So that's where we're going from in terms of our Pacific points totals. And surprisingly, unsurprisingly, I've got Everton 19th as well. In terms of when I did it, I was like, oh, really? I wouldn't have thought, I didn't think they'd be there. But I think in terms of, for Everton, nightmare run of fixtures. They have got games against teams around them. Funnily enough, I think you look at it in terms of games near the end of the season. They've got Brentford at home, penultimate game of the season. I think they'll win. That would take them to the last game of the season, needing a result against Arsenal. And I think Arsenal will beat them. And I think that's going to be it. I think this is going to be a season. It's going to go down to the last day, this relegation battle. And it's so tight in that bottom three. But Everton, it's like watching Villa when we went down. You kind of have that belief of you're too good, or it's never it hasn't happened for a while. So like, we always find a way out. And then watching Everton the last few weeks, unfortunately, they've been absolutely diabolical. I mean, in terms of they've just, at time of recording, they've just played Palace in the FA Cup. They lost 4-0. They started the game all right, and they got banged. And it reminds me of when this was Villa under McLeish, not the season we went down. I remember we went to Man United near the end of the season and we lost 4-0. And it was a pretty depressing season for Villa. Nearly went down ourselves. And I thought we'd played okay at Old Trafford, even though we lost 4-0. I was walking out the ground and there were two Man United fans in front of me. And they were talking about the game and they were going, Villa are the worst team I've seen this season in the Premier League. And it's like that of Everton. Like, they were playing okay in the first 20 minutes against Palace. You get banged. It's like, I think that's a real nightmare. It just doesn't look like they're going to get it together. But I've only got them going down by 2 points. So it's a real kind of fine margin one game which they get a result where you don't expect them to. I mean, they got Arsenal last day. I think they got Chelsea still to play. They got a lot of the big teams. I think they got Man United still to, I mean, yeah, not talking about big teams, Man United. So a couple of results, but yeah, I did it. I got them going down 18th. So 1 point above Everton and 1 point behind the team in 17th. I've got Burnley. I think in terms of their season so far has been marked by too many draws. And I think they're going to draw too many games the rest of the season. I mean, in terms of they've got games which I think they could get results in, but just they've had games in hand throughout most of the season. I mean, mainly because the game against us kept getting cancelled. So there's that feeling of, we got time. I think they're going to run out of time eventually. I mean, in terms of those 2 games against Villa, I mean, I think we'll beat them in one of the game. You think you'll 2 wins for Villa. I don't think we'll lose. Neither of us think we'll lose either game. I mean, the game at Burnley, maybe I can see that. But last game of the season, just looking in terms of Burnley, they got Newcastle at home. Again, I think they'll win. But results that have happened before might not be enough. So I think, yeah, I got Burnley going down. I mean, I think in terms of they're just kind of being pushed away from the beach, out to sea slowly and surely. And then eventually you won't see them. There'll be this little bob in the landscape. Gone. So 17th, I got Leeds as well. So same as you. And on 34. And then I had Newcastle on 36. I think in terms of Newcastle, I got it quite tight for the teams above Newcastle. So it could go either or. I think they're safe. I think they've done enough in the last couple of months. I think there may be a little at the end of the season. Other teams who they're playing have got more to play for than Newcastle. So I think that will lead to a drop-off in results. But they spent 100 odd million in January not to go down, and they're not going to go down. And unless I will loosely toss the word sanctions due to leadership and then run away from that hot potato. Unless that happens, then they're going to spend a lot more money in the summer, and we'll probably be talking about them higher up in the table. But yeah, so Newcastle I got 16th on 36. Not really much more to say about Newcastle, but it was it Isaac Newton who said what goes up must go down, and he had that apple under the tree. It's not quite what goes up must go down, but if teams go down, it means some other teams must come up in terms to replace them. And we're going to very quickly delve our toe into the Championship. For Villa fans who can't remember what happens in the Championship, because it's been so long ago since we've been there, 2 automatic teams, 1 in the playoffs. So quick whistle-stop tour. Who do you think is going to go up automatically from the Championship?
Automatically, I think the top 2 that are there at the moment, I think Fulham are too far ahead. Yep. I think they'll go up. Even if they have a bit of dip in form, they've got an 8-point gap to turn it round, and a bit of a cushion there. And Bournemouth have been good this season as well. Their recruitment in January, the types of players that they brought in, 2 of them were linked with us. And I'm glad that we didn't get either of them in Phillips and Campbell, but they brought in some good players. So I think it's the top 2 that come up in regards to automatically, and I think they finish in that order as well. Fulham win the league.
Yep, I agree. Don't have much more to add. For Fulham, as I said, they're too far ahead. Fulham, another yo-yo team. Yeah. But yeah, Mitrovic is just a cheat code for the Championship. So we've got that nailed down. So I don't know in terms of your team to go up from the playoffs, whether you've just got a team or whether you've got a playoff final or whether you've got 4. I've got my prediction for the playoff final and who's going to win. But if you've just got who's going up, hit us with that. Who is going to navigate their way through the murky waters of the playoffs?
Okay, so I've only got the team that will go up, but my 11-year-old Jake, who joined us on the Southampton Reaction podcast, has also given a few previews. He surprisingly put Newcastle to finish 4th bottom, and I laughed at him, because I didn't have the bottom 5. But
no.
You agree?
I do.
We all know how much Jake knows about football. He called Ashley Young against Southampton. Jake has gone for Huddersfield to come up.
Okay.
They had that big 17-game unbeaten run before they ran into trouble against the Tricky Trees. As much as I'd like to see a team like Nottingham Forest come back up, not only because of my surname, but because it'd be nice to see them come back up. I think they're a good, wholesome club. I actually think, and I've been saying it for 2 years now, so it's got to happen at some point, right? Luton Town, I think Luton come up.
Luton.
I'm desperate for a new team to come up.
Yep.
That's what it is. I don't want to see the same old. QPR come up, fair enough. It's been a while since they come up. Forest, the same with them, and Huddersfield in some ways. But I don't want to always see West Bromwich Albion coming up or those types of teams. It just bores me. What's the point?
Yep.
You know.
The romantic's choice is Luton. I mean, in terms of Huddersfield, do you remember when it went on an unbeaten run under Lee Clark, which was like 14 years, and they still didn't get promoted from League One a while ago? It wasn't 14 years. I think it was about 45 games. But just a needless Lee Clark dig in this podcast. You're welcome, Blues fans. So in terms of who I've got, you're not going to like my pick because it's not new and refreshing. Playoff final. I've got.
It better not be who I think you're going to say.
It's not West Brom, so we don't have to worry about that.
Friendship ended on air.
Yeah, even though we were recording in different locations, you would have seen the chair come from Will's side of the camera onto mine. But we don't have to worry about that embarrassing situation. I've got Sheffield United and Nottingham Forest playoff final. And in terms of that, I'd like Forest to win, but I think Sheffield United will. I think they're the team who they started the season not very well. They changed the manager. They're coming into a real bit of better form. I mean, the teams in the playoffs in the Championship just appear to be falling over themselves not to finish in the playoffs. I mean, there's complete lack of consistency, but Forest, they've demonstrated that they can mix it with the Premier League teams in their cup run. They're unbeaten, at least in the last 5.
Your Arsenal,
yep.
Your Arsenal.
My Arsenal. Handed a new arse to my Arsenal. So in the Championship, they're in a good run of form. So I think they'll nip into the playoffs. Maybe just a step too far because of the amount of games and pressure they've had this season to beat Sheffield United. But yeah, I mean, I'd take Luton. Yeah, I mean, probably one of the worst away grounds I've ever been to. Just get them in. Why not? But yeah, Sheffield United for me.
Just really quickly, the other team that I've deliberated about, and it's because of how well they've been doing recently. However, I managed to watch them on Saturday night, and they didn't do too badly against one of the Premier League big boys. I think Middlesbrough have got a chance since Wilder's come in. They've been doing okay. They've got some good players. Tavernier is a very good player. Their forward line of Balogun and Connolly, whilst he wouldn't strike fear into the heart of most Premier League defences, they're doing well enough, you know. So I think Middlesbrough a decent shout. Just quickly, before we move on from the bottom 5, as you know, I spoke to Pete again from Talking Toffees about Everton, and
probably for the final time, based on us predicting them to go down.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, sorry, Pete. His start of season expectations were mid-table consolidation after Ancelotti walked out on them. Fair to say Ancelotti leaving probably has been a big factor in what's happened this season. Their player of the season was Jordan Pickford. Quite surprised by that because you tend to see how poor Pickford is for Everton compared to England, but I don't see Pickford every week. Let's have a look. Players to improve. So we asked who needed to improve.
Whole team. It's a whole team, isn't it?
Well,
sorry, needless dig there. Sorry, Pete.
He actually said, and you're not far off, the people who run the club.
Okay, yep. There's bigger issues. Yep, definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And I asked him, if you could sign anyone, realistically, who would you like to sign? And he said Tomori, who's now at AC Milan, to come in and shore up that back line.
Yep.
If Everton finish where they are, I personally can't see Tomori joining them, but they're able to bring in a player of his caliber.
Yeah,
it's great. The back line's the problem.
Yep. If they stay up, that would be a great signing for Everton. My gut feeling is he's probably have his eyes slightly higher up the table, but yeah, if they can get him in, get a deal early, if they stay up, money well spent, I'd say.
Definitely.
So he is keeping the faith in terms of Everton staying in the league, and that takes us further up the league table now to those who we believe are not going to be too nervously glancing over their shoulders. They're going to be in that never region of 11th to 15th in the table come the end of the season. So maybe alphabetically again, Will, if you've got it, or a different alphabeti spaghetti in terms of your running order for 11th to 15th. Who have you got in those calmer waters?
I'm going to go for reverse alphabetical order this time because I'm a clever boy.
That is really, you can tell we prepared for about 3 weeks for this.
We got Southampton.
Yep.
We've got Newcastle. We've got Leicester. Joe's going to be happy. Spoke to Joe as well. We've got Brighton. Yep. And we've got Premier League new boys, Brentford.
Yep. Okay. I mean, I think again, we've got, unsurprisingly, a similar run in terms of teams in that direction. You mentioned Brentford. I've got Brentford in there. You met Brighton, Southampton. I've got those in there as well. Obviously, my Premier League bottom 5 didn't include Watford. I've got Watford in this section. And the team rounding off the 11th to 15th for me, I've got Palace.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of those selection of teams in there, I think it'd be fair to say there's teams, if they finish in that area, is a job well done. They would have bitten your hand off at the start of the season. I think Brentford fall into that category. I mean, I've got them on the same points as Newcastle. So kind of 15th in my run and 1 point below Watford. So they're kind of in that same boat, but great achievement for Brentford if they're able to get it over the line, which they've got a couple of home games, which is just enough, I think, to get them the points. They had a big win recently, which I think is settling some nerves that may have jangled. So great result for them. Brighton, I mean, we talked about it in terms of they had a decent run at the start of the season near the upper kind of European qualifications, but I'm interested to hear Joe's thoughts. But I think the lack of a sustained attacking threat has really seen them just dip down as the season has gone on. I mean, a lot of draws again, not being able to finish teams off. But again, a season of sustainability, where do you go in terms of Brighton? Is a real push for Europe next season? I mean, some teams like Villa have pushed a button in terms of demanding Europe, but is that the same for Brighton? I mean, they're a well-run club, and the opposite to what we've heard about Everton. They've got a bit of money to spend, but not loads. Fairly comfortable this season. I think that's a pretty good job done for Brighton. It'd be interesting to see. It's almost an element of, at the start of the season, they were doing well. So Graham Potter was linked with some of the jobs that were going. Because they've slightly disappeared from eyes of view, likelihood of him staying in the summer increases. And then fully enough, they might get to do the same thing again next season of the fast start. And then hopefully, from a Brighton perspective, they are able to sustain it. Then maybe they will break into our top 10 next season. But I think that's a decent job for them. Southampton, we both had them. The end of Dean Smith. That was a big game for Southampton as well, because they hadn't started the season particularly well. But then they went on a very good run. And then we smashed them kind of 4-0. So I think, from their perspective, from where they were at the start of the season, Danny Ings leaving, real big blow to them, to where they are now. I think they would have taken it come the end of August is my view. But I think they're kind of, I don't mean this derogatorily, because you've got Leicester in the same 5 teams as well. They are a poor man's Leicester, I think, in terms of players come in, they sell them on, new players kind of come in to fill the molds, they then sell them. got Walker Peters in the England squad, so there's opportunities there to impress and get onto a higher stage at Southampton. But yeah, I'd say to be relatively pleased with their season's work. Will, I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think I was surprised with Southampton and them finishing in this sort of area of the league. I thought they'd finish slightly higher than where I put them. To say the area, I probably would have had them in this 15th to 11th, but the actual position I've got them in, especially after that run of form that they had after beating us 1-0 at St Mary's, they have done very well at the start of the season after selling Ings, as you say. They probably would have taken around here comfortable enough not to worry about relegation, getting to that magical 40-point mark, keeping hold of James Ward-Prowse. At the start of the season, if you'd have said to Southampton, who would you rather keep hold of, Ward-Prowse or Ings? I imagine they'd have said Ward-Prowse. They've got some very good players there. They lost Vestergaard to Leicester, and Walker Peters, as we've mentioned a few times, we're fans of him on the show. He's done very well to get into the England squad. I think Southampton will be hoping to hold on to Brozier from Chelsea. Whether they want to pay the 40 million that's being bandied about for him, I don't know.
Well, Chelsea maybe conducted a fire sale in the summer, so they might be able to knock a zero off it.
Well, they might. Yeah, I mean, you look at the rest of their forwards, and you've got Adams and Armstrong, and Armstrong hasn't done anything apart from score a great goal against us. Adams isn't your deadly striker, so they definitely need some more firepower. Yep. I can see Armstrong leaving Southampton in the summer, joining a team who's just come up and banging in a load of goals for him, as happens a lot of the time. They're definitely the sort of club who I think we've aspired to be like when we came back up into the Premier League, that sort of mid-table team who don't have to worry about dropping down, and with the right signings they can push on into Europe. But at the moment, Southampton just don't have enough about them to really be troubling, ninth or higher for me at the moment, despite what they've done this year.
Yep, I agree with you there, but I'd say Hudson Hall's done a great job in terms of setting that ship. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you for the reasons, lack of firepower. Yeah, I can't see them challenging for Europa League, but keeping that ship well run. I mean, in terms of, and also how many managers survive getting banged 9-0 as many times as Vestergaard. But one of those occasions was to Leicester, who you've got in that 11th to 15th category, which the opposite to Southampton. At the start of the season, if you would have said to Leicester 11th to 15th, they would have been very disappointed. Why do you think in your table you got them in that area? Where's it gone wrong really for them in terms of how have they ended up so low in your estimation?
Well, the simple explanation is they've been crap this season, really.
Yep. Next question.
They've had a few problems with injuries. Their back line has had some injuries. Johnny Evans is a key player for them, and without being slapped to Leicester City, I think it's worrying when you've got a 34, 35-year-old Johnny Evans as one of your key players in your team.
Yep. Fofana getting injured massively.
Yes, massive blow. Came back, scored, didn't he, on his return? So maybe seeing him come back, you'll see an upturn in fortune. I think the likes of Maddison has probably been a little bit unsettled. And that's just me speculating. There was links with him to Arsenal in the summer, but he hasn't really done it.
Well, he didn't start the season very well. He's come into a bit of form second half of the season. Recently, I think he's really picking it up. But yeah, I mean, you could say a bit unsettled first half.
Yeah, but Tielemans hasn't hit the ground running as well this season. He's still a very good player, but he's going to be off. They're going to be selling him in the summer because they're not going to want him to wind down his contract. Nope. But really for them, the lack of really prolificacy, if that's a word, I don't think it is, from Jamie Vardy. He just hasn't got the goals that he normally would because of injuries, because of trying to get Patterson Daka into the team. They've had to rely a lot on the likes of Harvey Barnes, and Harvey Barnes is a fantastic player. I think he should be potentially in the England squad, if not knocking on the door. But Leicester, as good as they've got a few really key players, they don't have enough of them. They're a bit like Southampton in the terms, not firepower so much, because when Vardy is fit, he'll score a lot of goals for them. And they've got Barnes as well. It's the other areas of the team for them. The centre-backs, I think they need to sort out who you're playing with. They'll have to sort out the central midfield next year. And as much as all Villa fans love him, Kasper Schmeichel isn't what he was 12 months ago, that goalkeeper. Ever since he had that green laser shined in his eye at Wembley, he just hasn't been the same.
So do you think that Leicester have underachieved this season if they come in the 11th, 15th bracket? Or do you think that is as good as their position is as good as this team is currently?
When you look at Leicester City on paper and you look at what you'd expect them to achieve in the Premier League, I think they've massively underachieved. I'd have been expecting them to really be in the thick of it for Europe come the end of the season. However, the season as a whole, if they can win the European competition that they're still in, then that's a massive season for them. And you probably find that Leicester fans would take winning that competition and finishing in the bottom half in those 5 spaces, not right down the bottom, but finishing where we predicted or where I predicted them, over challenging for Europe and maybe not getting into it. Whilst it isn't the biggest European competition, it's still a statement of intent. It's still a cup that you've won.
Yep.
And it's been a while since Leicester have won a cup. Brendan Rodgers.
Well, I'll just throw in there, they won the FA Cup last year.
Wow, exactly. It's been a while.
Yeah. What have you done for me last week? I think that's that's what my boss asked me. But
I can't remember yesterday. Never mind last year. No, you're right. I mean, between it'll be a period of glory again for them, won't it? Winning the FA Cup and winning that trophy. Yep. Brendan Rodgers, maybe he's been a bit unsettled because of all the jobs that he was linked with. I do though feel that with the right recruitment in the summer, Leicester will be back battling in the top half next season.
Yeah, but I would say if we do this next season, I think they will be expecting us to be talking about them for a European place if it all goes to plan for Leicester.
I think we'll beat them as well at I'm going to say Filbert Street. It's not Filbert Street, it's the Bowl, isn't it? I think we beat them 3-1.
I think our best chance of beating them is at Filbert Street. If they turn up to the wrong stadium, we might get in there. But okay, I had Palace in mind by process of elimination, because Palace aren't in yours. They're in the top half of your prediction. So we'll have a bit more of a delve into Palace in when we come to them in terms of your predictions. But in terms of that 11th to 15th, the running order, 15th to 11th, how have you got them?
Okie dokie. So in 15th place and only 3 points above the drop zone, I've got Brentford. I think Brentford are going to pick up some surprise victories. I can see them beating Man United when they played them at home. And I can see them getting a couple of other wins, doing well against West Ham. They've got them at home as well. They tend to do quite well in the London derbies as they beat your Arsenal first game of the season.
Yep, that was a bad day. Yep, I've got Brentford 15th as well, 3 points above the drop. So we're on the same page for that one.
My 14th place team, and I'm just going to quickly go back to another prediction that I didn't say. Jesse Marsh, I think he will be sacked quite soon for Leeds. I don't think Leeds carry on with him really at the helm beyond the season, especially beyond September or so. 14th place, I've got Brighton. Now, I worry about Graham Potter. Whilst he's done very well at the start of the season, they've had a horrendous run after they won their first. They did really well. They won 8 games, didn't they, very quickly? I've got them to win 9 games this season. So it's not great for them.
No, I mean, I don't think they won 8 early on. They were unbeaten for quite a lot. But funny enough, I'm looking at my table. I've only got them to win 8. But I got 15 draws. They got a lot of draws. So I've got Brighton 13th. You've got them 14th, so similar positions. Where did friend of the show, Joe, have them?
Well, Joe
or his predictions.
Joe wanted to see improvement, really, and it's the quickest that they've ever got to the points tally that they're currently on, so they were quite happy with that. Player of the season for them, in his opinion, and he doesn't think that all Brighton fans would agree, is Neil Maupay, because of the late goals that he scores to get the results. Think about their game against Southampton.
Yeah. I mean, we're used to an unpopular opinion on this show, so they're welcome.
Well, and he likes his work rate and his endeavour as well for the team. Neil Maupay, sort of player I wouldn't mind. No, I don't think he troubles our front two. I think he's more of a squad player.
Yep.
Is he a better Mitrovic than Mitrovic?
No. Not my view.
Well, I did point out I'd go for Mitrovic at one point earlier this season, and I think it was a case of, he's done all right though.
Yep.
Concerned about the wing back, says that they need to improve. They need more attacking output. However, he did put in the proviso that they've had to change their system because of Burn leaving and because of Webster's injury. So things have amended there. And then the player who he'd like to see sign, and it's a shame that Joe's not coming back onto the show, is Danny Ings, or a Danny Ings type striker, because that's what they're missing out on. I'm not surprised. Most people want Danny Ings in their team, not just me.
Nope. I mean, you'd have 11 Danny Ings in your team if you could. But yeah, I agree in terms of a fully fit, firing Danny Ings would do a great job with Brighton.
He'd do a great job at Villa.
He was. Good point. So in terms of, I had Watford 14th for the reasons I said in the bottom five. Their home games, I think they'll get points. Brighton 13th. Who have you got 13th?
I've got Southampton 13th. I'm 42.
Yep. Southampton 13th, 12th.
I've got Newcastle 12th. I think that whilst they're probably going to have a little bit of a blip, I also see this now as Eddie Howe saying to his players, look, next season, Trippier's going to be playing, Bruno's going to be playing, St. Maximin is going to be playing if we can keep hold of these players. The rest of you need to, and Burn, the rest of you really need to show me why you deserve to be playing. Let's see how high we can get on the pitch. Show me that I only need to add one or two more players, and we'll take it from there. And I think that that's going to galvanise them. I reckon they'll get 43 points in the end. So they're going to be a good 8 points off 10th. But next season, I expect to see Newcastle, dependent on summer recruitment, knocking on the door of 8th place plus, trying to push Leicester and those other teams for Europe.
No, unfortunately, I agree with you there in terms of the money coming in the summer is going to push them into that top half. And then speaking of Leicester, by process of elimination, you have them 11th.
I've got Leicester 11th. I also think we're actually going to see a classic match this year. So if it's on the telly, tune in. Newcastle 3, Liverpool 4, like the good old days at St James at Anfield. But yes, Leicester to finish on 50 points and only just one place off the top 10, but a good 7 points ahead of Newcastle.
There we go. So to round off mine, I've got Southampton 12th, which is similar to where you have them. And then, as I mentioned, I've got Palace 11th. So we can leave the midfield behind and look up towards the top of the league now. And 10th to 6th is whereby the first European places are going to be marked on the card. I mean, it could, depending on the cup competitions and how those end up, could go, we're penciling in 7th, could potentially go as low as 8th, maybe, on some calculations that I don't profess to understand and may not even be true. So 10th to 6th, who have you got in there in no particular order?
Oh, let's give you a regional this time.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to start with highest regional league going down. So a couple of them are from London, a couple are from the Midlands, so they may not be quite right. No. But we've got Man United in there. We've got the mighty Aston Villa. We've got Wolverhampton Wanderers. We've got West Ham and we've got Crystal Palace.
Yep. And continuing a theme of 4 out of 5 that we established at the outset, 4 and 5 we agree on. In terms of, I've got Villa in there, I've got West Ham, I've got Man United, I've got Wolves. The only difference is we've got the Leicester Crystal Palace split. And it worked out perfectly in terms of, we've had your thoughts on Leicester previously. In terms of Palace, I had them 11th. I'd still say that was, even in 11th, I think that's a very good season for Palace based on they had to build pretty much a new team in the summer with a new manager in place in Vieira at time of recording in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Really good season, I'd say, for Palace. I think beyond expectation. Would you agree with that?
Crystal Palace have had an amazing season. They probably had the best season out of all of the teams when you look at start of season expectations, with potentially the only other team to rival them being Wolves, in the fact that, you know, Patrick Vieira was one of the favourite managers to get the sack this season in the sack race. He's had a couple of struggles there, but he's done very well. He's got the best out of Conor Gallagher, who has been amazing. And whilst I don't want to see him at Chelsea next season, I equally don't want to see him at Palace. I want to see him at a team like Aston Villa. I think he's going to be a big player for whoever he plays for. So fair play to Vieira. The central defenders that he's brought in, Anderson and Guy, have both done really well. Guy getting into the England squad. Yep. You know, and he's
Mitchell as well, called up to the England squad.
Of course, he's had a great season, and he seems to have got a spark, or been able to keep the spark going for Wilfried Zaha. You know, he's a very underrated player in that Premier League who consistently does it season upon season for Palace. So I think they can be very, very happy with their season. And for them, long may it continue. They're a team that I like. So I'd like to see them staying in the Premier League. I don't think they're going to have to worry about relegation next season, though I'm not confident that they'll finish top 10 with the money of the likes of ourselves and Newcastle and, you know, other teams that will be able to attract better players potentially. I mean, looking at Palace compared to us, when you've got Vieira as one manager and Gerrard as another, do you think that we're the same sort of attraction if you're a midfielder, that you get to play for such a great player, or is there one or the other that would potentially sway you a little bit more?
Well, it's certainly a big attraction. I mean, Vieira more of a defensive midfielder, you'd say. Gerrard more of the attacking, swashbuckling type player. I mean, they're both got that big reputational pull. I mean, both players who, if you're making like a list of top 25, top 50 players in the Premier League since football began in 1992, you'd have them both in there. So, yeah, certainly big pulls. I mean, I think in terms of, I don't mean this disrespectfully to Palace, but Vieira is their biggest draw in terms of, you're not going to Palace for the money, probably. You're not, I mean, they've got a great support, but, you know, kind of facilities wise, you know, they're not top of the table in terms of, you know, the condition of the stadium and the training facilities and all that. So Vieira is a massive pull for them. And you can see, mention some of the players who've come in, even Gallagher, even if it's just on loan, the chance to play for Vieira, I'm sure would have been a big factor. And funnily enough, if Chelsea end up with their, what we'll just euphemistically call issues, continue into the summer, then I can see Gallagher starting for Chelsea next season. I think that's more because they've had to have a bit of a fire sale. But if they need to hold on to some of the flotsam in the wreckage, then Gallagher's definitely going to be in there. And I think he'd do a decent job. But where the difference is between Vieira and Gerrard is, obviously Gerrard is a massive pull. And you got Coutinho where they played with each other. So that is the personal pull. That was the most important thing. But for Villa, you've got the stadium, you've got the training facilities, which are amongst the best in the league now of the recent investment. If you are looking, you know, kind of to build a team, you can point to the youth facilities and, you know, kind of the young players coming through. You got the ground, the history. So I think Villa have, and also we have established we're now going to be a bit looser on the purse strings, and then we're going to be paying a bit more for the right player. So I think Villa have got more to offer than Palace. But yeah, in the right, if you're just looking in the individuals and there's nothing else to take in consideration, I'd say they're fairly even. I mean, you could arguably say Vieira is slightly higher in terms of the international market, just because, World Cup winner, European Championship winner. So in that sense, isolation slightly higher. But yeah, great position for both teams to be in, to have such a well-known figure in the dugout to say, you come and play for me. You've seen how good I am, or what was, in terms of our playing career. We'll help you get to that. I know maybe if Villa ever end up trying to sign Saka, Vieira may be slightly ahead in that race. As long as Vieira says, if you come here, I'll stop people kicking you, then you'll be all right, which is different to his playing career. But we touched upon Villa. We've got them in the top 10. And we've talked about kind of our expectations for Villa this season, next season in our regular podcast. Go and listen to us previously, and we'll talk about it again in the future. I mean, just in terms of this episode, top 10, job done for this season. Next season's going to be the bigger one in terms of the expectation will be Europe. And we've mentioned a few of the teams who are going to be in competition for that place or places in the Europa League, Europa Conference League. We mentioned your Leicesters, your Newcastle's coming in. So it's going to be, better buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride in terms of that race for next season. But top 10, spoiler alert for me, I've got them 10th. That's kind of where our season is, kind of mid-table, really. Man United, we've both got them 10th to 6th. That means no Champions League. How many points in your table did you have them off 4th?
Oh, let me do a quick calculation. Manchester United are 18 points off 4th in my calculation. Let me point out this as well. Out of all of the teams that have got a positive goal difference, Manchester United is the worst out of the positive goal differences in the league.
So I've got them a mere snip at 14 points off Champions League. You mentioned the goal difference. The team I got 4th has a significantly better goal difference. So realistically, it's 15 points. That's quite a fall from grace, really. I mean, I don't think many of our listeners are going to be too sympathetic to Man United, perhaps. I may have underestimated that. But yeah, I mean, you remember the talk in August when Ronaldo came back of, Champions League is a minimum, maybe outside shot of the Premier League. At the time, I remember thinking the hyperbole around Ronaldo was unjustified. It was a situation, in my view, United could have spent the money that they spent on wages. There were other positions of the team that needed improvement above centre forward. The only reason they bought him was to stop him going to Man City. And you can tell how stupid that was as a recruitment strategy, because Man City are not doing too badly without him in terms of, they haven't had a centre forward really, and they're still doing perfectly fine. So they didn't need Ronaldo. United kind of bought him as a spite signing. And yeah, I also don't agree the other way, people saying it's Ronaldo's fault United aren't doing very well. I don't think it's that simplistic, but I do think it's fair to say that if you had your time again as a United board member, I don't think you'd be signing him. He scored goals for United, to be fair. It's not as though he's come and scored like 2 goals and he's been injured all season and not done anything. He's been brought in to score, and he has. But in terms of the improvement of the Man United team, that's symbolism of chasing the shiny thing in, kind of like in the Crystal Maze dome, going for that gold token, rather than, looking to improve the team as a whole. And that is why on either of our calculations, we've got them up the furthest away, probably from the top 4, let alone winning the league, than they have been for probably since the Fergie era. I mean, you're probably looking from a United perspective. I don't think the team's as bad as this, but in terms of how other people see them and in terms of where they are compared to their rivals, this is Moyes territory, I'd say, for United in terms of how they're seen.
I think you look at that though, and you look at David Moyes, and you think maybe they should have stuck with him a little bit longer.
No, to be fair, if Moyes goes back to Man United based on the job he's done at West Ham, I don't support Man United. Obviously, you may have guessed from being on a Villa podcast, but sign me up for the Man United ride next season and the fume when that train wreck happens if Moyes goes back to Man United. I'm all in for that.
I think the thing with Man United is like you say, at the moment, their aspirations of getting even close to the top, winning the Premier League, you could say the Champions League at the moment, with the downward spiral that they're on and all the unrest, is akin to a cat chasing a ray of light that's shining on the wall. Once they think they've got it, they realise, oh no, I don't. It's over there. They're just not the Man United of old. Alex Ferguson struck fear into the heart of oppositions himself, and then so did his players. His players fed off that. They had the likes of Roy Keane, who you didn't want to go into battle with. David Beckham with his pinpoint crossing. You think of all the players that they've got at the moment playing to the abilities that they actually are, how many of them will get into that great Man United team? I think the only one who'd be close is Bruno on his day, and that's saying something.
De Gea, maybe?
Not over Schmeichel. I wouldn't. I think Schmeichel, I'd have, Schmeichel didn't have that 2 or 3 years massive dip in form that De Gea's had, but De Gea has resurrected himself very brilliantly this season. Will he be at Man U next year? Anybody's guess. They're just not what they used to be, are they? Nobody fears Manchester United anymore like they used to. And that may seem a bit of what you're talking about, but we got 4 points off them. We were 2-0 down at home and we fought back with 20 minutes left. All we had to do was Coutinho, bang, and we were back in it, But no, I think there's more teams that you're fearful of at the moment than Man United, and those are the sort of teams like your Wolves and your West Hams and your Tottenhams. Man United are there for the taking. Man United are there waiting to be caught by a lot of teams that are meant to be smaller clubs, but with the right appointment, they could be right back in the thick of it again.
Yeah, it's a big job for whoever takes it in the summer, and it's a bit of a contested race. Basically whoever wins that week in a European league gets linked with the job, and whoever loses is like, oh no, they're not good enough. But
it's a rebuild for them, isn't it?
I think it's a sad state of affairs. If I was a United fan, we're talking about a rebuild. I agree that they're 3, 4, 5 players short of being a title challenging team, and they've spent over £1 billion since Fergie left. They've spent probably the most in the league, I'd probably say. And they're, as we said, they're the worst. They're further off their goals than they ever were kind of at any time in the post-Fergie era. But enough of laughing at Man United, because we could laugh at Man United for quite a while. I'm going to switch to a team you mentioned earlier have been above expectations this season. Wolves. We've got them in our 10th to 6th. Fearful at the start of the season in terms of a new manager, thinking, and they lost their first few games. Really turned it round to them. Fair play. I mean, their European aspirations, we'll see where we got them, whether they are in the European places, but to be in that position from the start, and it seems a club, even though they were losing games at the start of the season, there wasn't that talk that leaks from a dressing room that's not happy in terms of this new manager who doesn't know what it's doing. they were quite happy with performances. I mean, the Wolves fans I was speaking to at the start of the season thought they were playing well, and it was when the luck would turn, it would turn. And well, that's happened. I mean, that defence, he's built a pretty solid defence, to be fair to him, which, funnily enough, previous manager Nuno, known as a defensive orientated manager, kind of went a bit wrong in his last season at Wolves, trying to be a bit more attacking. Gone back kind of to that defensive base, and it appears to have suited Wolves very well indeed.
Definitely. I think being able to keep hold of Ruben Neves was a big thing for Wolves in the summer, especially with Rui Patricio leaving, Nuno going, who, yeah, things started to go south towards the, last season when he changed his approach, but he did a very good job for them. And I think Wolves fans would be the first to recognise that, the season they came up from the Championship, they were phenomenal, weren't they? Apart from maybe one game in around about April time in the Midlands. Yep. But, to think with what they had to contest, they've got a new goalkeeper coming into the league, and it's a goalkeeper who's coming from a Greek league, and you think, wow, I don't know, he ain't gonna do great.
Done really well. I mean, in terms of when Patricio left, eyebrows raised, arguably better in the goalie they brought in, which is quite something.
Arguably, yeah. Jose Sarr, quality. I mean, Max Kilman has been a force this year, considering that Willy Bolly isn't playing anywhere near as much as he was. They've got Pedro Neto, who's a very good player. Daniel Podence is starting to establish himself as a good Premier League player as well. Very quick. He's getting goals also. Raul Jimenez, let's not forget, it's remarkable the recovery that he's had, that he's been able to play. A silly red card against Tottenham. No, not Tottenham, Chelsea, wasn't it, where he was blocking the ball and you think you're plonker. But not to forget that during the season, they've lost Adama Traore, and Adama Traore was starting to add goals and assists to his game. Not many, but he was still starting to. So they've done very well. They brought in Huang Chan, is he? And
yep, still okay.
They're a decent team. I really do think that the two back-to-back wins that they had over Newcastle and that never say die win that they had against us as well have really helped give them the belief that was the turn of luck that they needed. And from there, they've done brilliantly.
Yep. I mean, they played Arsenal twice in short order and lost them both. I think that's kind of made them. Remember that? I would, yeah. That's their European charge hit the buffers, but I think again they've done a very good job, and they're in and around that European qualification race, and a happy ship going into the summer. And speaking of a team in and around the European qualification race, the final team in this section are a team already in Europe this season, West Ham. And last season, I think fair to say, overachieved. I think, or they exceeded people's expectations significantly last season. This season's always a bit trickier when you've got European games on a Thursday, so getting that squad balance and numbers, they're a bit light on numbers and being affected by a couple of injuries, but still in that European race, still in Europe at time of recording, still in the Europa League. A great win in the previous round against Sevilla. Sevilla have won the Europa League 6 times since they've actually been on air today. So they are a real feather in the cap there. I think it's almost as impressive this time around for West Ham. They say kind of second season syndrome is a difficult thing, but following up from what they did last season in that European race, I thought they might dip off a bit, but there's certainly no dipping off at Villa Park on Halloween in terms of that performance. But yeah, I think they've done very well again, and I laughed earlier when mentioned in terms of Moyes going to Man United again, but I think at West Ham being able to build that kind of mentality of tight-knit squad of players, us against the world type scenario, and they've got the facilities, they've got the stadium, and they got money, in terms of, so they're not kind of scrabbling around for cash in that regard. But yeah, I think a very commendable, very solid effort again from West Ham, and it makes you think that with a couple of additional signings in the summer, we may be saying the same thing again next season.
Definitely. I think when you look at West Ham as well, it's commendable for them that their two best players are organic players, really, in the fact that it's Declan Rice who's come through the ranks, and I think he's been everything that they hoped Rio Ferdinand would be as a midfielder. Don't forget, Rio Ferdinand started out as a centre mid for West Ham. He's added a different layer and a couple of levels to his game, driving runs forward, getting goals, getting the team playing. The other player, Jared Bowen, what an inspirational signing he was. He's upped his game even more. They've got a very good, strong squad of players, and they're the sort of team who, with a bit of luck, could go and win the Europa League, could finish top 6. I suppose we'll find out in a minute what we both think about that. But why shouldn't they now be attracting the likes of a Yuri Tielemans or those bigger players if they're going to consistently get into Europe? David Moyes has rebuilt his reputation. Yep. I know I said what I said about him going back to Man U, but he'd be stupid to leave West Ham. He's doing so well there, considering that he was at West Ham, they got rid of him, and then they got him back. Yep. It's very much like watching Everton 15, 20 years ago, or however long it was, that he was there. They've been very impressive, and West Ham, I think, are very unlucky not to be in and around the top 4. It's more the fact that some of these other teams have got big game experience that they've got to play against, the likes of Arsenal, Tottenham, Liverpool, Man City, I'm sure they've got as well, and Chelsea. They've got all the top 5 to play. But also, I think they're going to run out of steam a little bit because of the lack of signings. That was naive of Moyes, and the amount of games that they've got. If they can add a few more people, if they can add an out-and-out striker, considering that Michail Antonio was a right-back for Nottingham Forest, he's not bad,
no.
Then they really could be one of those teams who we're saying next season, oh, bloody hell, Champions League, maybe.
Tielemans would be a fantastic signing for West Ham. You could say that for a few teams in that bracket, but yeah, that would be a real statement for West Ham if they were able to attract Tielemans. And you mentioned still in Europe. So we're going to cast our prediction nets a little wider now into the European competitions, which is where 10th to 6th are largely concerned with. Europa Liga with West Ham. Quarter-final draw is current. They have Lyon. Sporting Braga have Rangers. Frankfurt, Barcelona, Leipzig, Atalanta. Who's your pick to navigate that field to be crowned Europa Liga champions?
Well, I'm going to give you Jake's pick first.
Okay.
Jake's pick was Glasgow Rangers. Just feels that Rangers are going to do it this year. I laughed. It's going to come back and bite me on the butt. So put all your money on Rangers.
Yep.
I think Barcelona are going to do it. I think it's going to be the fairy tale season for them in the end, especially after their big 4-0 win against Real Madrid. Okay, is it really a fairy tale when they get bailed out by a big loan from the bank again, where you think, hang on a minute, what's going on? I'm a big Barcelona fan, apart from Villa. All the teams that wear claret and blue, you see, I like. So I think Barcelona win that one.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, 2 months ago, I probably would have been given a different answer, but they're on a run of form under Xavi. They're summed up in terms of Dembele. They were offering to drive him to the airport for anybody in January, couldn't find a taker. Now he's back in the team and contributing. So just seems a good atmosphere that's been built at the team. And, mentioned the recent 4-0 win against Madrid. Yeah, I think they will navigate their way through the field. So Barcelona hoisting European trophies once more. Europa Conference League quarterfinals. Leicester are still in there against PSV. Marseille against PAOK, Salinka, Greek team. Bodo Glimt, Roma. Nice little rematch. You reminded me before we went on. Roma lost the last time they played. Have a look at the score if you can't remember. Final, Slavia Prague rounds it off. Who's your pick to navigate that field?
Oh, they were similar to Claret, and he gets his revenge like only he can. Jose Mourinho's Roma lift that trophy for me.
That is a call, and yeah, I do agree with you. to be honest, I was trying to build that up into some wildest kind of banter, but no. It's Rangers. It's not Rangers. It's Roma. Roma for me. And just to round off, cutting any speculation at the low level, 10th to 6th, going up from 10th to 6th. Who have you got?
In 10th place on 51 points, I've got Crystal Palace. In 9th place on 51 points as well, I've got the Villa. I think we finish above them either because of alphabetical order or because we actually win 4 more games than them. I've only got us to draw 3 games all season. We lose an embarrassing 19 games this season, but we win 16. 8th place, glory, Man United.
Oh, okay.
7th place, I've then got Wolverhampton Wanderers. And in 6th place, I've got, with a staggering 20 wins, but 11 defeats, West Ham on 67 points.
Okay. I think we match 1 in terms of the order there. I think Wolves, both got Wolves 7th. So yeah. I've mentioned I got Villa 10th. I've got Leicester 9th, West Ham 8th, Wolves 7th, and Man United 6th. But Man United, yeah, nowhere near the Champions League, as we mentioned. And to the Champions League, we must go because we are in the final straight, the top 5. And those who've been making a note of the teams we predicted will have come to the revelation that we've both predicted the same teams in the top 5. Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, and Spurs. So, questions to be determined in the top 5. Who's going to come in the top 4, that 4th place for the Champions League, and who is going to win the league? So those are the real battles still to be determined, and also the small matter of the FA Cup, because 3 of those teams are still in the final 4.
And the Champions League, yep.
And the Champions League. So plenty of trophies. I reckon we just jump straight in here. So top 4 first. 1 team is going to miss out because 5 is not going to 4. Who you got coming 5th?
I've got coming 5th a team who have been strange this season, really, more than anything else. Even with the new manager coming in, surprisingly, they haven't finished in the bottom 5 with a new manager. But having that new manager coming in halfway through the season, they've lost a lot more games than I thought they would. I've got Tottenham Hotspur. I've got them to finish 5 points ahead of West Ham and 5 points off 4th place.
Yep. I've also got Spurs 5th. I've got them miles ahead of 6th in my table. And I've only got them 3 points behind 4th. But yeah, real mixed bag of a season in terms of started very poorly. I mean, we were suckered into thinking they were terrible. Even we'd beat them. Didn't work out. Conte, great choice of manager. There was a fear that he might walk out at some point. You know, they had a bad run kind of January, February time, brought in a couple of signings in January. You look to have done okay for the money they spent, you know, relatively low risk, and Dejan has done very well in particular.
Yeah.
So yeah, to come 5th, I think is an achievement kind of in itself based on what was going on. And, you know, in terms of a game that will make no difference to how the season ends in terms of their 4 places, but they play Arsenal at New White Hart Lane. I think they'll beat Arsenal.
I think they'll draw 2-2.
There will be goals. So we can confirm that. So we've got Spurs 5th. And so, you know, our top 4.
Yeah, even with Spurs at the moment, sorry to jump in there, Spurs are still a poor man Pochettino Spurs at the moment, even with having the calibre of manager like Conte, who I'd say is better than Pochettino, as much as I like Pochettino as a manager. Spurs are still 100 million miles off winning that league or coming in the top two. They're nowhere near it. Their best opportunity was when they ballsed it up to Arsenal and Leicester. When Leicester won the league, they finished third, which was a crime against football. Really, they should have been winning that or, coming second. They're never going to have as good a chance as that again, especially as they were in the Champions League final as well around that time, losing to Liverpool.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, they've got a long way to go, but I don't think they're too far behind fourth, really.
No, for me, that Champions League final, it's a once in a generation, 2 generation get to Champions League final. But in some ways, that was the worst thing that could have happened to Spurs. Simply because I think at a board level, they looked at it going, oh yeah, we're in the Champions League final. We don't need to do very much for this squad. Whereas realistically, that was the time they really needed to invest in just invest. And also in terms of right players, really build the quality of the squad. And they didn't. And it fell apart very quickly. And I agree with you there, a long way away. And that's only 3 years ago. So that's kind of a lot happens. But, we have not got time to dwell on the past because we are still looking into the future. I'm going to leave a curveball, potential banana skin curveball for myself. I'm going to hazard a guess that we both got Arsenal fourth. Or Are you going to surprise me by having another team in fourth?
You've actually got Arsenal top. No, I've got them fourth. I've got Arsenal fourth, which I think is a massive achievement for them this season.
Yep.
Considering at the start of the year they wanted Arteta out.
Yep.
He's done a great job. I still maintain what I said on the last episode. I'm not going to go into it too much at the moment. I imagine that when fourth place is cemented, that they'll be getting the open top bus out around North London.
Will do. I'll be there.
Fair play to them, considering that they don't really have a striker anymore. I mean, Lacazette's okay, but Lacazette won't be there next year. Neither will Nketiah, neither will Balogun and all them lot. They're going to need some investing next year to even get top 4 again, and they need some heavy investing.
Yep, I would agree with you, especially centre forward, as you mentioned. They need squad depth. I mean, I think the longer you've got Granit Xhaka in your centre midfield, the less likely you are to be challenging for the very top trophies. It's kind of my view. I mean, but they've done well. I mean, the start of the season, absolute horror show for them. And yeah, I got them 3 points above fifth. And that's all you need to come fourth. Maths fans will tell you. So, soldering on to that top 3, I'm going to I'm not going to guess your third place. Because 3 teams in very good form at the moment at time recording, and 3 very good teams. So I don't anticipate there's going to be too many points dropped by our top 3 during the course of the rest of the season. But for me in third, I've got Chelsea. I think in terms of the mentality, they've got what we'll call outside influences at the moment in relation to Chelsea. And they just keep winning. And I mean, good players do good things. Shock horror. But I've got them third. And we'll see if we have them winning a cup competition when we do our delve around. But again, for Chelsea, the summer is going to be the key thing for them. And you have to assume if they don't get the takeover through, then they are going to be in a bit of trouble, shall we say. But for this season, it's kind of could be the last hurrah for some of these players. And they certainly at the moment seem to be giving everything, I say, to the cause. I mean, they're probably a bit unsure what the cause is, apart from each other, really. But it seems to be working for them.
Definitely. You find that there's some teams who have that, who have something happen to them, such as Chelsea have had, and it galvanises them and it spurs them on to perform well for the rest of the season. They've definitely done that. They played very well against us. They're a very good team. They're a strong team. The summer is going to be big for them in regards to the likes of Azpilicueta, Christiansen, Rudiger, all potentially leaving on frees. And speaking to that Chelsea podcast, they had Rudiger as their second best player this season. Thiago Silva is their best. For them, and I didn't really think of it, they've met expectations. They wanted them to finish second or third, and they expected to win the Super Cup and the Club World Cup, and to be in the latter stages of the Champions League as well, and to get a domestic cup. And they've done really, really well when you look at it all over the course of the season. But the biggest thing for them is going to be Thomas Tuchel staying, and what he can get out of the players that he's got available. If they can spend money, either way, those three players we mentioned about the free transfers, they're probably all going to go. So he's got to bring in three new players. He's got to build on them. You've got the likes of Kovacic and Jorginho, Loftus-Cheek, Barkley, who I can't really see sticking round. And then Conor Gallagher, does he come back and play alongside N'Golo Kante? And there's the big question mark really for them over who will be their striker next season. Will they cash in on Lukaku or not?
Yeah, I mean, it seems that Tuchel don't think he fits Lukaku in his system. It was very much a Chelsea signing, not a Tuchel signing. And I think there's going to be a generational change in terms of ownership, but I think there's also going to be a generational change in terms of the expectations and demands on and of the manager, because Chelsea under the Abramovich era, high turnover of managers, high turnover of trophies. So it's worked for them in terms of that trophy cabinet has been getting bigger and bigger. But I agree with you. Tuchel is the glue that is going to hold that club together. And the result of that is they're going to have to say to him, you got 3, 4, 5 years to build your team, in terms of we're going to give you control, more than what previous managers in the last couple of decades will have had, because depending on what happens with the takeover, even if a takeover happens tomorrow and they get like the richest person in the world, ethically sourced money, they're still not going to get a better manager, I don't think, for that club. So keeping him is absolutely vital. So I think that's going to be interesting to allow whether they allow him to build a dynasty, because the teams we haven't talked about, top two, their managers have been there 5, 6 years, which is a lifetime now in terms of top level football. And you could say the two are linked. And, we will see if we can link them when we talk about those two teams, which I'm not going to go in order. I'm going to stop. I'm not going to say second, because you would have deciphered second and first, Liverpool, Man City, long-standing managers. Both would have expected to be in the title race. I had City to win the league before the season began. Liverpool were almost written off in a large section of the media, and they've been the underdogs, even though they won the league, just a couple of years ago. That's really worked for them, I think, because they've kind of been able to do their business. And then especially when City went on their run kind of in the December, January period where they were unbeaten, winning week after week. The title was given to them in February. It was like, let's not even worry about the league, let's focus on other battles. Really close race now at time of recording.
Yeah.
Do you think for either of those teams, if they don't win the league, that they'll see this season as a failure?
I think if Man City don't win the league, then they'll see the season as a failure, considering how high they've been up in the league, first place for the majority of this season, and how many points clear they were of Liverpool at one point. Was it 7 points clear?
I did double figures. I think it was like 13, I think, at one point.
And the fact they'll probably be looking at the start of the season and going, did we spend 100 million on the right player? Yep. He's adapted. He's very good at adapting his team, Pep, and getting his players to play and rallying them as a team, very much like Ferguson used to do at United. It's everybody's out to get us. We've got to stick together. That camaraderie. You fear playing Man City, not because of the blood and thunder of Roy Keane, but because of the craft and guile of Kevin De Bruyne. I do really feel that Manchester City, to be able to cement a legacy in Europe as well as in the Premier League, with the likes of Liverpool and potentially Chelsea challenging them next season, that they need a striker. They probably need two. They need a Harry Kane or the like, and they need somebody else as well who can step in and get goals also, because they've got a fantastic squad. I don't think it stops there for them. I think they could do with a right back also. But yeah, to answer your question, if City don't win the league, I think it's a devastating blow for them, unless they manage to do something in the Champions League. If they don't win the league and they don't win the Champions League, but they win the FA Cup, that's not enough for them. That's not enough for Man City.
No. Well, let's leave our Premier League prediction for the title. Let's leave it dangling, because you mentioned the cup competition still left. Let's go there. European Champions League quarterfinals at time recording. Man City have got Atletico. Liverpool have got Benfica. Chelsea got Real Madrid. Villarreal have got Bayern Munich. I think most pundits will say for City to be considered, a real big team, big club legacy team, they have to win the Champions League. Do you think they're going to win a Champions League this season?
I think the Champions League and the FA Cup is going to be shared between the two. But to answer your question, yep, Manchester City finally win the Champions League, meaning from what you've got there, Liverpool win the FA Cup. I think Liverpool beat Man City on penalties, depending on where their game is played, how many people are there. It could be a local park with 100,000 people at the moment.
Yep.
Jake's got Chelsea to win the Champions League, which I don't think is too bad.
You can never rule them out. I mean, Chelsea usually, when things are at their worst, is when they win the Champions League usually.
Yeah, but no, City for me and Liverpool for the FA Cup.
I mean, bear in mind, Chelsea, they current holders of the Champions League, so they would retain. I mean, Nottingham Forest did it. I'm trying to. I don't think another, and fact fans will correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think another English team has retained the Champions League. So that would be something for Chelsea if they were able to do that. I think it's a real open race in terms of Champions League. I think Liverpool, City, Chelsea, Bayern, semi-finals. I got a sneaky feeling for Bayern, to be honest. I mean, it's not a vintage Bayern team. It's in terms of, I don't think it's the best we've had in the last few years, but I think Liverpool and Man City, they got other, even though the Champions League is a big prize in terms of shipping each other in the Premier League and the FA Cup, and they've got each other in the league as well, may kind of bite them each, kind of affect. There's only so many trophies you can win. I mean, I know you can win 4, and Liverpool are going for 4, but no, I think that will play into the hands of another team. Chelsea, just because I can't have them winning it 2 years in a row. So no to them. So I'm going Bayern. FA Cup, I agree with you. I'm going to go for Liverpool. So brings us back to our Premier League conundrum, and what could be arguably answering our question of who is going to win at the league. City, Liverpool, still to play at the Etihad. Do you have a inkling of how that game's going to go? What would you predict?
Up until I did the predictor this morning, I got Liverpool to win that game, thinking that they would, but I actually opted for a 2-2 draw in the end. There's goals galore in their games. 2-2 earlier in the season, wasn't it, at Anfield? You sort of feel that Alisson's got a mistake in him, but when you've got the goal threat of Salah, and then you've got Diaz and those sorts of players as well, it's one of those where anything can happen. You expect there to be goals. It's so hard to call. It's like the old Man United Arsenal rivalry from when the Premier League was good and at its peak. This is a clash of the Titans. This is, I think, now for the next 5 or 6 years still, unless Pep goes, which there's obviously talk about, this is for wrestling fans, your Austin Rock type of battle of the heavyweights, constantly going to be going at each other. And you could easily say that the team who tend to finish runner-up are the better team, even though they're probably not. But yeah, one of them. What about you? What have you got as the score?
Well, I had it the same as you, actually. I had it 2-2. So my prediction is similarly useless in terms of giving an indication as to which team may win the title. I think in terms of Liverpool, what I'll give them credit for is first title and Champions League was based upon that front three. Salah, Firmino, Mane. And all the talk was, how is that front three going to be replaced when the time comes? That's going to lead to an inevitable drop-off. They're doing okay so far. Jota has arguably taken Firmino's place in the team, and he's arguably playing better for Liverpool than he did for Wolves, in terms of, that's what some Wolves fans tell me. Diaz looks like a great signing, even though the best part of it was to annoy Spurs. But he's fitted in, and could see him slotting in. Yeah, I mean, they've done 2/3 of the job, and really got to give them credit for that. I mean, in terms of further on, going towards the back is where I think, the midfield in particular, I think is going to be, they need a couple of pieces there to maintain that legacy, but they've done a good job so far. And City, you mentioned, if you get a striker, they'd be dangerous. Kind of all that, but no, they're doing okay without him. But yeah, Harry Kane in that Man City team, well, Jesus Christ.
Haaland.
Yeah. Haaland, yeah. I mean, I think I'd say now Barcelona have found money down the back of the bank sofa. That brings them into play. Madrid, perhaps. Those two teams for Haaland. But yeah,
Danny Ings.
For Real Madrid.
Anyone.
I can see that. But well, Danny Ings at Man City. But if Danny Ings does go to Man City in the summer, in a shock transfer, though it won't be a shock because you would have heard it here first, will he be going to the Premier League champions if he goes to Man City? That's a roundabout way. We're going to go to the business end of the show to wrap it up. Who have you got to win the league?
I'm going to give you a little bit of suspense first. So I think both teams will have 2-2 draws in between now and the end of the season. City, I think, will get held by Wolves. Strange one, but there's always strange results towards the end of the season. I think City will beat us on the last game. I think Liverpool will beat us as well. Yep. I think Liverpool will draw 2-2 with Tottenham also. Strangely here, so there's not much that separates these teams. The team who have got second have got a better goal difference and have only won one less game than the team who finished top. There's 1 point in it, the big difference being that the team who win the league only draw 6 games. Manchester City win the league by 1 point for me, and that goes against everything I've said, because if you followed the podcast, you'll know that I've been saying all season Liverpool will win the league. So I think the thing for Liverpool is Liverpool's biggest signing, and it wasn't even a signing, the biggest thing for Liverpool this year, I said, was Van Dijk and Gomez coming back and forming a solid back two for him. It hasn't worked out so much for Gomez, but Matip has stepped up. He's a bit of a cult hero for him at the moment. He's done very well, as has Van Dijk's incredible, isn't he, as a defender? Yep. But City win it by a point for me on 93 points.
It is pretty much a mirror image in terms of where I'm going to go, because at the start of the season, I had Man City to win the league, and I've got them second. I've got them second by a point. And also, I've got them, similar to you mentioned, where I think it's going to fall down for them. I think they're going to draw Wolves. And again, last day of the season, I've got City to beat Villa and Liverpool to win last day. I've also got City to have the second place team to have a better goal difference. So for mine, it's City. So yeah, it's like put a cigarette paper between the two and call it. But yeah, so I'm similar to you in terms of my pick at the start of the season isn't who the predictor table tells me. But I think we can both say it's going to be a enthralling run to the end of the season. I mean, we are, from a Villa perspective, largely just going to be sitting back and enjoying it and enjoying our victories against Norwich and Burnley. And I've got a Speed Palace as well. So there's going to be our appetizers before the main events. Sit back and enjoy the spectacle that is going to be the run into the Premier League. Just as much as we hope you've enjoyed us talking about the run-in and the spectacle that is the Premier League, and we've covered the Championship, European, and all the other cup competitions as well. So next time, we will be going back to the day job of what some people will say we do best, of talking about the Villa, because our next Villa-based episode is going to be our preview of the Wolves game, taking place Saturday, 2nd of April, 3:00. But until then, it just leaves us with the opportunity to say, check us out in the meantime on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity. We've highlighted a few of our previous episodes that you can go back and listen to, our talks with other fans. And thank you to the fans from other teams who've contributed to this episode as well with their thoughts on their particular teams. But you can check those out on our YouTube channel, Talking to Trinity. You can listen to the audio versions on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Geezer, Deezer, Weezer. And we're on Fan Hub. We're on some other places that my co-host will delightfully wrap up for you when I pass over. But from me, I hope you've enjoyed our ruminating about non-Villa things. We'll be back with you soon. But in the meantime, enjoy your international week and get out in the sunshine. It's looking quite nice where we are. So thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining us. As we said the other day, our new tagline is, well, it's better than nothing, isn't it, our podcast? Thank you, Dave Martinez, Dance Dave. Thank you to everybody who's watching on YouTube. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Comment on the video. Let us know who you think is going to finish where in the Premier League, wherever the Villa are going to finish, most importantly, or how many points are they actually going to win the league by, when they mount that late title challenge. Let us know on Twitter as well where you think teams are going to finish. Take a screenshot of your predictions, or just say, lads, you're wrong. These teams are going to finish here, here, here. You can listen to us on Deezer, Geezer, Freezer, Weezer, Sleazer, Sleeper, Jeeper, Jumper, Thumper, Dumper, Apple, Google, Spotify, and all of the other good and not so good podcast sites. But until next time, cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. I'm Villa till I die. Up the Premier League predictions.